Haiku operating system has been under development pretty much since the end of BeOS. I remember, I think it was open BeOS to begin with, and the community has spent, um, I don't know, decades. Some individuals have been there all along, I think, and certainly everyone who's interested in BeOS has been tracking the project for a very, very long time, and it sort of got to the point where it was seeming to be usable recently. Um, So you can get the image from haiku.org and get the latest beta. The 64-bit version is faster. It's nothing to do with memory. The 32-bit version can see all the memory as well, but it's faster and by default uses a more modern version of C++. But the disadvantage with it is it doesn't run actual 32-bit BeOS apps, which the 32-bit version does. So it's kind of the forward-looking version of Haiku, if you're looking for that. It doesn't take long to burn the HaicuOS image. It's not very large. And in fact, in this case, I was using a USB 2 stick, I think. So it would be a lot quicker if you were using a USB 3 one. And in general, just booting and everything will be faster as well. And BeOS first came out on PowerPC processors, on its own B-Box, which is a really neat looking machine. But it was then ported to x86, and Haiku, I think, has been x86 from the beginning. It supports 32-bit and 64-bit x86 now, and there's also a RISC-V port, which I kind of find irrelevant since there's no way I'm going to spend hundreds of pounds on a RISC-V machine. Although it is a significant achievement to port the operating system to RISC-V, and having it run on multiple platforms also makes it a more solid and reliable system altogether. You do obviously need a PC to run this on, and I had an old motherboard that has been lying around for about 5 years that I got a new case for, and I was going for kind of the box type look, and I also wanted it to be quiet-ish, thinking about the media PC angle of it all. So I got it a gigantic cooler. So I put an old board into a new case with a gigantic cooler, and it's an old Intel board, quite a fast processor, and onboard graphics. And it is very old. I think it must be 10 years old. In theory, this cooler could work completely passively, but I did put a fan behind it. The benefit is that the fan noise doesn't really change. It's just sort of a steady, fairly low hum. It doesn't alter at all. So obviously put the USB stick into the PC and restart the PC. You may need to change the BIOS to set up the boot order so that the USB stick is at the front. And this is where things all started to go horribly wrong for me, because yes, it's booting, but then it always just boots to a black screen. Now there is a way of stopping the boot, either by pressing Control, Shift or Space, and I never remember which because I think it's actually used at least 2 of those over time. And you have to hit the space bar at exactly the right time, so it takes certainly took me dozens and dozens of power off attempts to get to the point where I could actually break into the boot loader and tell it that I wanted to use VGA mode, safe graphics. And once I've done that, it did start up okay into that graphics mode initially. The other strange thing that was happening with this was that I was expecting it to go into the installer script. So normally when I've installed Haiku using their ISO image, it starts the installer for you. This just went straight into the operating system off of the USB drive. The USB drive is, as I said before, a USB 2 drive, so this is all being much slower than you would normally expect it to be. And the screen here looks all completely washed out, but that's just something to do with the video display it's generating plus the capture device. from the main menu on the right hand side, you can drop down and activate the installer application anyway. And because my drives weren't set up, I went straight into drive setup and set up one of the drives, which worked fine. No problem at all. Just formatted that with a B file system, which is a really cool indexed file system, which you can query. Also, I think designed for large files, as it was kind of the BeOS. It's just selecting a drive here to install onto. I had some older SSDs that I've removed from computers which I'd upgraded, and I'm just using those in here. And the actual installer is very fast. I'm not speeding this up at all. It just copies all of the packages off of the ISO image onto the hard drive. It's very good. So normally it's just a quick reboot after the installation, and you're into the operating system. So I'm getting black screened again multiple times, and having to switch the machine off multiple times to try and get to the boot menu, which allows you to select a safe mode and actually boot into the system. So this was really painful. Here we go again for the nth time. Like, this must be about the 20th time I've powered the system off, and yes, pressing space I think worked. So then you can select the safe mode options and select the failsafe graphics driver and get the screen back. There's basically nothing worse than having a completely black screen because you can't see what's happening and you don't have any idea what's going on. So at this point I'm sort of hoping that if I update the system, the graphics drivers and the boot up process might improve, so it's not either going into a black screen or being completely random whether it actually listens to the spacebar or not. Now, the actual package manager in Haiku is excellent, and it will update the operating system. I mean, this took quite a long time, and I've sped it up because I don't think you want to watch a 10-minute download, but it's a very effective way of keeping the system up to date. And you can also get all sorts of new and interesting packages from it. Again, the screen here is just looking completely washed out for some reason. Some combination of the video display and my capture device not working very well. Another thing BeOS was famous for was its pervasive multi-threading, in the sense that every window uses two threads and it's designed to use multiple processors. And this was back when most systems only had one, so it was very forward-looking at the time. And here we have it's flickering horribly due to the screen issues, but and not, by the way, on the actual screen, only on the capture device. But you can see the pulse and the activity monitor all working smoothly here, and all the different CPUs in use. So I'm hoping that updating the system might fix some of the driver issues or the startup issues where it doesn't look for the keyboard properly. So I'm going for a restart again. Sadly, it's black screening again and not listening to the keyboard again on startup, so I have to retry powering the machine off a few dozen times. Maybe an exaggeration. I think maybe it takes perhaps 8 or 9 times to be able to hit the spacebar at the right point for the bootloader to stop and let you change anything. You're meant to be able to edit a config file to set the VESA settings and fix those. I edited that file and it made, well, a difference, but the difference seemed to be that it picked up the actual driver, which I wasn't really expecting. It picked it up at 800 by 600 only, and you can't change it. This is what I tried to change the video mode. So it looks like I have a working Haiku installation that's jammed at 800 by 600 on the Intel HD, which I suppose, could be worse, let's be fair. Previous experience with Haiku has been much better than this, and I think it's just some issue with the current latest edition and my out-of-date 10-year-old hardware just not agreeing with each other for the moment. It's definitely worked really well in the past, so when it gets back to a more usable state, I'll definitely do a better video on some of the great features in the operating system.